Good evening. I'm John Bailey. This is People to be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight you have the Republican candidates for Common Council in November in White Plains, New York, USA. And they are Andrew Custodio, to my immediate left, Anne Marie Encarnago, and Brian Peroni. And first of all, let's go to the heart of the question. What will you bring to the Common Council? Brian.
What will I bring to some common sense?
Yes.
And a fighting spirit for the city of White Plains and for all the residents.
Mm-hmm. And what particularly interests you?
Politics itself, but just the government and how it's operating and how it's running. And I'm just excited to have the opportunity to run for Common Council.
Right. Now, Anne Marie, you have run for council before.
Yes,
and
twice before.
You run life insurance agency, right? And
a real estate agent and an insurance agent. Right. Property casualty, not life, though.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew, and what do you bring to the council? What do you want
What
to
I want to
achieve
bring is kindness. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about. If we have kindness in our city, then everything else will fall in place.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew Custodio, who you are co-president of the Council of Neighborhood Associations.
That's correct.
And so you have been having a first view of issues over the last 5 or 7 months. So what will you bring to the council? What do you...
Well, I mean, first of all, John, I actually ran 2 years ago, and I decided to run both 2 years ago and again this time around because when I first moved into the city with my wife about 5 years ago, there were quite a few issues that came my way, and the city themselves were not really listening to me, and it was very frustrating on my part. And I joined 5 years ago the White Plains Council of Neighborhood Associations, and I quickly realized that a lot of people had the same issues that I did. But the type of person I am is that if something is not being done, I'm the type of person I want to get out there and really get involved and make that change. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. Now let's sort of tackle some of the issues that we went over with your opposition in the fall, in November. Encroachment of development.
Yes.
That has been a major issue for years at the Council of Neighborhood Associations. We currently have a number of approved developments that have not been started. Are you in favor of continued development, big or small, or pulling back? Well, why don't you can jump in, any one of you on this.
Well, I mean, I don't mind development, but 10 projects and 6,000 apartments is kind of a little over the top. And I don't appreciate the fact that we approved all those projects and not one of them has started. Instead of, they get tax abatements for it, and they give to pilots programs, but I feel like if they don't start their project on a certain time period, I think they should start losing their tax abatements. Mm-hmm. Because 10 holes in the ground is just not what we really were looking for. And it's appreciative that at least one senior citizen is one of the projects. I think we need more than that. I've dealt with a lot of senior citizens, and that's the biggest problem. The housing list for HUD for senior citizens is 3 to 5 years.
It does take a long
problem.
time. Well, and look at the Winbrook project. That is something no one talks about, but they told those people that they would have their apartments replaced 10 years ago. Now that is a lifetime.
Yeah, that's right.
And
but why do they need to be replaced?
I can't believe that, and it's still not started the second building.
Second phase.
But that's I just like to point that out. So, Brian, same issue.
I think we have to kind of pump the brakes because I know there's just too many apartments. What is it going to do to home prices? The older complexes, the condos and co-ops, what's going to happen to those prices? And are people going to be able to rent them? Who's going to go rent those when I can go in and there's 6,000 empty apartments? I mean, look at the Calb, that's not filled. Right across the street, you have a Crater sitting there. I just think pump the brakes, as an on-need basis.
And Andrew?
I myself, I'm for developments. The problem that I have is the manner that it's going about, meaning, you know, the city has, and I'm going to beat this dead stick, if you will, the comprehensive plan, and they don't seem to be following it. And it's a very important part of how the city functions, right? If one part of the city is doing this, how does it affect another part? And when you start doing your own game plan and start having all these variances or whatever it may be, it creates problems to the other parts of the city. And residents see that. They have problems with this. Yeah, I mean, they want to build new apartments, bring in the yuppies, bring in the millennials, the young people. But at the end of the day, what is that really offering the city? You know, a lot of those young folks come in to start their careers, start their lives, start their families, and then they get up and go. Right. And then what is White Plains stuck with? You know, we need to attack, not necessarily attack, but go after people who are willing to stay and make White Plains their home, and really say, what can I do to make White Plains a better city? So with that being said, I am for developments. It just has to go in the right fashion, follow the plans that have been in place with the city. And one of my platforms is talking about small businesses too. Try to get small businesses into White Plains. You know, the big conglomerates like Amazon, for instance, totally wipe out cities like, you know, take for instance, Detroit, Michigan, they file for bankruptcy. You know, White Plains isn't in bankruptcy yet, but if they don't start thinking ahead, you know, we could be in trouble sooner or later. So small businesses, mom and pop shops can really help White Plains progress and really get better.
Yes.
Can I add to that for a minute?
Sure.
What I think could be done for small businesses, instead of giving all those tax abatements to the big developers, how about helping our small businesses and give them a little relief?
Yep.
That's what I think needs to be done.
How about do affordable rents for businesses, for small mom and pops? Give them a chance. Somebody that's in White Plains who wants to start a business, but they're afraid they're going to pay $6,000, $7,000 a month. They're not going to be able to.
How do you think that could be affected?
How could it be affected? Effective? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Affected. How can we bring that into effect? Do you, as
Any
to
project,
getting
they have to designate certain spots.
Oh, sort of like
Like
parallel
require
to the affordable
requiring
housing
a
limit.
developer
Right.
to say 3 stores are going to be $1,500 a month, and that's it. I mean, it all can be done. It just has to be negotiated.
I see. So you feel you can, to make it clear, you feel you negotiate with the
Guaranteed.
present landlords.
Guaranteed.
Well, that's the real issue, is the landlords.
Yes.
It's really not so much it is the rents, but I have to tell you, besides the rents, being a real estate agent, I've been in most of those storefronts, and if I could tell you, they are atrocious for what they're asking, especially along the Marinick Avenue. The basements in those buildings literally have raw sewage running down them.
If you want to build, you have to work with us.
Well, John, for example, I'll give you a good example. I'm a musician, and for many years, I only moved to White Plains 5 years ago. But as a musician, where would I come, you know, maybe 10, 20 years ago? I would come to Sam Mash because that was really the only place. But over time, you know, the internet has come into play. And what does the internet offer? Better deals, better gear, equipment, things of that sort. So I don't go to Sam Mash anymore. I go online and I purchase whatever I need to. And with that being said, we have to be kind of more innovative. And what I mean by we is the city. We have to think of ways to be more on the cutting edge so that the city isn't left behind, but we can stay in front of, you know, any technology that may come, and that we can continue to grow as a city and not say, oh shoot, why is our sales tax down for, you know, this year? I mean, that's a problem.
Is it lower than it was 7 years ago?
Right.
Which
We
the city
collect less,
revealed.
but we raise the rate. So it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But now, is the new zoning in place along Westchester Avenue allowing residential developments on office parts, most notably 1133 Westchester Avenue? Are you receptive to this development?
I am.
You are.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a great development. It takes, I think, away from what people are complaining about, putting up big high-rises in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a neighborhood that is slightly affected, but the number of houses, I mean, it's off by itself. They're going to keep the office building. A lot of those people will probably be the ones that'll rent. The parking will stay the same, and it's all in back of the building, so nothing will change as far as the view.
Yeah, do you think, as a person familiar with the real estate market, that other parks along there would take advantage of this?
Yes and no. It depends on our actually vacancy rate has lessened. It's not as bad as it used to be, so it's kind of on the uptick. So it all depends really on
The
the
offices
owners.
are filling up, is what you're
Yes,
saying.
compared to what it's been previously.
Okay, so it may or
It's
may
like,
not. It may or may not is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Expand beyond 1133. And what is your feeling about the lowered income eligibility for affordable housing in the city? That is a new piece of legislation being worked through the Common Council, hasn't come for a hearing yet. In this case, they would, a developer could only devote 10% to go down to 10% of in the affordable housing, but they could buy out of it. They could buy out of it if they
There shouldn't be
cash out.
there shouldn't be a buyout.
There should not be a buyout.
No. The whole purpose is to give affordable housing.
Absolutely.
Yes, and they lose money if they on affordable housing, so they'd much rather take the buy out the money.
500
So
apartments at $3,000 and can't give a hundred
right.
or something.
When I saw
to-
that, I couldn't believe it because it was justified by the administration in White Plains that, well, this would give us more money to actually get rolling with the affordable housing. You know, now
After
the
the-
buyout is not going to buy you a year's rent, you know, in a motel or something. You know, it's very low.
Yeah, I mean, affordable housing is so critically important, especially in Westchester. Westchester County is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States, right?
I think they
So-
said we are the most at this
I
point.
think we
I
are
bel-
number one.
I believe it.
Westchester's always number one.
And I believe it, especially with us being so close to New York City, being close to Wall Street, with investment bankers making all this money, and what's it doing? It's driving out the people, the middle class, the lower class, who can't really afford to live here. So I think affordable housing is a very important element, not only for this city, but for most municipalities in Westchester County. It really needs to be looking closely and really taken seriously.
Yeah. Anne-Marie, how much are we down? Do you have any idea as to what the affordable housing demand
I want to kind of switch
is?
over a little because as a
Okay.
real estate agent, I want to say, don't think White Plains is not affordable because there are plenty of apartments that we have existing that are reasonable in rents, like along Lake Street and around that area. Like one bedrooms there, you can $1,800 compared to, let's say, over $2,000 in the new developments. So it's
Easily.
If
a
not more.
certain kind of
Right.
clientele, but there is. So I don't want people to get scared and not come to White Plains because we do have lovely housing, and I think those buildings, they might not have all the amenities, but they're beautiful pre-war. Larger apartments. They're wire and lath. They're not sheetrock where you hear everything. So it's
And White Plains is,
Balanced.
the reason why my wife and I moved to White Plains. The taxes were very reasonable. I mean, looking at other places around the area, you're not going to find the tax base that White Plains has. And, I'm hoping that stays that way. And that's another reason why I'm running.
Yes. Exactly. Now, Brian, you own a business, and you have been in the restaurant and the
Club business.
service business for about 25 years.
Longer than that.
Yeah, longer than that. But-
you giving your age.
I have a pair of sneakers older than that.
So, as a businessman who has had to contend with working with what is available to rent and work out of over the years, plus dealing with for your many years at a very posh beach club as a catering place, what do you feel business needs to get going again in White Plains?
Well, I think again, it's, you know, the rents are just, you drive people out. You can't afford the rents in these places. That's why you have all these big corporations and big restaurant groups or big stores. There's no mom and pops. How can they afford it? You know, something has to be done where you can help the mom and pops. I heard there was I think it was, we were saying about a little coffee shop on Bank Street, a mom and pop place that was, you know, thriving because of construction. But, you know, once these rents go up, how do you stay? You know, you have to sell a lot of coffee to pay $5,000, $6,000 a month in
A
rent.
lot of coffee. Now, you had also mentioned when we spoke previously, when we first learned you were running, is parking.
It's all of our pet peeves.
Yeah,
So
I
what
mean,
is your solution?
I think as residents, how about, you know, I would pay $100 a year to have a
Pass,
permit,
That's what I say.
you know, to let me park somewhere, at least give me an extra hour. I mean, that's $27.5 million, I believe they raised through parking revenues.
yeah.
It took us out of
Funds
debt,
and
actually.
Yeah,
They borrowed
I
from the
haven't
parking.
checked the budget to
Yeah.
see what they did get out of it, but
That's-
it's
that's
It's
correct.
about
Big
27.
hunk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, John, let me tell you a story. I went last weekend to New York City with my wife, and the reason why, one of the major reasons, wow, parking is free in New York City on the weekends.
No, I never knew that. Because
Yeah,
we always park in a garage.
Oh, well,
Yes.
I parked three
yes,
times
on the
last
streets.
Saturday in New York City, all free. And
On the
I was,
street, right?
yeah, and I was telling my wife, what a novel solution. Maybe White Plains should think about that.
Well, Sunday we have free.
Yeah, I
They
think
took
it-
away the holidays, though, which
Yeah.
was, I think, not
you,
nice.
You talk about the sales tax revenues down. Who wants to come and be penalized $25? I want to go have a bite to eat or buy a book. Now I get hit with a tax, a $25 ticket.
And that's
Yeah,
what's
that's
affecting our
true.
storefronts and our small businesses.
That's right.
Is parking.
Exactly right.
Well, once you get a White Plains ticket, you don't come back.
People don't.
They don't.
People
And
don't.
Very
I
true.
think that has a lot to do with it. But
Yeah.
they will argue that it affects everybody and they just have to deal with it. If red light cameras only break even, would you consider discontinuing the program, or do you see them as a needed safety enforcement tool?
I see it as-
Discontinue it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
After
go ahead.
you, Brian.
Yeah.
I would discontinue it. I think it's surely a ploy to make money. You know, I don't think there has been enough research out there to say that it saves lives. In very small instances, and you know, this is my opinion, it would save lives. But I think whoever the brainchild was behind this was to surely make money.
Okay.
You know, John, go ahead.
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no. You were waiting to.
You know, when you get that ticket in the mail, if you go through the light, what's 99.9% of the people say? Oh, thank God, I'll pay the fine, there's no points. So it's definitely just a revenue stream, in my opinion.
I wanted to talk about the safety issue. I'm co-president of the Council of Neighborhood Associations, but I'm the president of the Highlands Association, and if I can tell you, the most complaints from our citizens is the way people drive. We have stop signs on a lot of corners because our streets run from one end of the town to the other, and people blow stop signs all the time. The thing that's been proven about red light cameras is it is deterring people to stop at the red lights. As the money thing, I don't think it should be that. It's all about safety for me. If it's going to slow people down, then it's worth it.
Oh, it's really safety. I came up with this the other day. You should have, just like they warn pedestrians how much time they have to cross, they should warn cars how much time before the light turns red.
That's smart.
And
I
that-
drive around town like the Mama Dell, and I blow my horns and chase people down and pull up to them and said, "You just blew that stop sign back there. Is there a reason?" And it really makes them think, and they apologize, because people just are in a hurry and they just don't think. That's why I say kindness, manners, respect for other people. You're not the only one on the road.
Right. Now, let's talk about the city budget. It came out this week. We're taping on, what is today? April the 5th. Right. And what do you think of the new budget? Are you familiar with it?
I briefly got a chance to look at
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah, I didn't look at all, whatever, 498 pages,
Yeah,
but I did
498
get a chance to
pages.
skim through it.
Yes, right. Well,
It's difficult to really kind of talk about it if we're not in it and seeing. Yes, we could see where the line items are, but how do we know? Are those programs working? Are they getting overpaid? You really got to be.
well,
I
they're
think,
always
more
working
involved.
because
Well, not
They
working.
say they're working.
Well, they say, but
The big part for
That's
me
it,
is,
John.
looking at the proposed budget, the big part for me is they're going to raise our taxes, what, 2.7%?
2.7%.
what happened
So-
to the 2% tax cap rate, though?
Oh, they're under the cap
Yeah.
because they get dispensations for various. Our tax revenue did not grow as much, so we get a dispensation for that, as I remember.
They
it.
always have a way in the back door to make it sound like it's the right thing to do,
Always.
but it's not working.
Well, the increase in taxes is the same as the decline in sales tax.
Right.
Going out towards the end, and they say it's not really related. They're not.
So
but
penalize the
it's a
citizens.
coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think raising taxes is just, you know, it's a lack of being creative to say what are other avenues we could go through to make more money, to generate more revenue for the city. So, you know, thinking as a councilman or a council member, I would say raising taxes should be the bottom of the list. It should be like the last resort.
desperate.
And unfortunately, I don't think that's happening in this case with this current administration. It's very sad.
No, it is.
You know,
it has never gone down.
John, they always tell
Indeed,
you.
right.
I'm sorry. They always tell you that it's only going to be $100. It's only going to be $50 when they raise
On a
it.
very low assessed house.
I'm just
Yeah.
as an example.
Yeah.
But you never hear when they raise your tax. They never worry about how you're going to pay for that. They always tell you, "Oh, don't worry about it. You'll be able to pay it," or somebody's not going to eat because you don't pay that $100. They never worry about how the taxpayer is going to pay that. Where are they going to do? They have to spend an extra hour at work, or miss a game, or miss a recital, or something, a family.
No.
They never worry about that.
Well, the city tax is the least of your worries. The big problem is the school district,
83%
which
of
even
our
though they're being
taxes.
frugal,
Yeah, I mean,
supposedly frugal.
shame on the White Plains taxpayers, residents. I heard a statistic like we have 60,000 people in the city, but only 800 people vote on the school budget. Come on, we need to do our part too.
Well, if they put the school budget on election day, it
Right.
would never pass.
That's true
I
too.
mean, that's why they do it.
Unfortunately, most of it is pensions and salaries.
Yeah,
so
right, you're right.
Westchester has the highest paying teachers' salaries than,
well, it's personnel
Most
driven.
places.
That's what the school budget.
and not
is.
that they're not worth it. I think they're worth it.
Right. So there was a possibility that. Well, we don't have a State of the City address officially presently anymore. It seems to have disappeared. So, why don't you tell us what you think the state of the city is, Brian?
White Plains is a great place to live, and I just want to make sure that it stays on the right track and doesn't go off and crash and burn. And again, for me, it's just I see a lot of empty stores downtown. I see not the cleanest areas downtown. So, I think there's room for improvement. Definitely room for improvement.
That's my other pet peeve, littering. What is it with littering? Can we teach we teach our kids, don't do this, can we start from young and say don't litter? Especially with the whole plastic thing. I walk around downtown and pick up garbage all the time. And we even have the bid where store owners have to pay extra to have them clean in front, which I don't understand why the city doesn't take care of it and why we're making store owners pay extra. That's another thing I don't think small businesses should have to pay for.
Some of the store owners should have a little pride too. Go out and
Yes.
sweep, take a hose, clean. I mean,
Yeah, you
it's
should
your
be
business.
responsible for what's in
Absolutely.
front of your store.
Absolutely.
What happens to that?
A quality of living initiative.
Yeah.
So,
Well, John, I've done my due diligence when I ran 2 years ago and this time around, and thanks to your CitizenNet reporter, I've seen that the issues always remain the same for the past 15, 20 years. And
I will agree with you.
the problem that I have is the voters have the power to put the people in office that can make change. But what happens is they put the same people in and nothing gets done, and that's a huge problem. If we say that we the voters have our say and put the right people in office, maybe these issues could finally get addressed.
Well, in regards to that, I think we have to stop voting party lines.
Agreed.
Why isn't it about the person? I've lived here 52 years. I know the commissioners. I know the mayor. I get things done. I pick up a phone and I get things done because I have that relationship here. So things have to change.
They do. They don't. That's the whole problem.
Because you keep putting, as he said, the same people in voting the line. We're, 2-to-1 as far as parties are, and I don't understand why it's not the person and what you stand for and what you want to do, rather than, well, when people ask me I'm running, well, what party are you? I say Republican. They're like, even a friend, and I just want to smack them and say, what do you mean? It's me. You know me.
Right. Now, the downtown redo from the train station all the way up to Mamaroneck, and we've got. How do you feel about that? How it was put together. Like, we still don't know what they want to do with the four city-owned plots right next to the station. We still don't know where it's going.
I think a lot of these issues are done behind closed doors, and there's not, and I preached this 2 years ago, there's not government transparency or administration transparency. There's a lot of that going on, but my background's an engineer. I'm all for development. I think we need to develop. Take for example our rail system in this country. It's like we're living in the 1600s, whereas you go to Japan, Germany, France, they have state-of-the-art rail system.
And we have one of the busiest.
Yeah, right. Good point. Absolutely. Metro North Railroad through White Plains, one of the busiest ones. Right. And, we need to develop and stay with the times. But, again, the manner it's going about is wrong. The last time the comprehensive plan was really effectively looked at was in the late 90s. An iPhone didn't even exist in the late 90s. It was revisited.
28 years
it was
later,
revisited in 2006, the comprehensive plan. But again, the iPhone wasn't even that popular back in 2006.
But how do you decide what you want when you don't know how society is going to change in 5 to 10 years? That's the whole problem with the comprehensive plan in the first place.
Right.
Well, citizens want their downtown to be something that's welcoming, where everybody can meet. We have that feeling of family and community in White Plains, but we don't have, let's say, like
communication.
Like Mamaroneck, you could go and walk around on the streets and shop and eat. White Plains doesn't have that, and that's what we need.
Well, we also need a planning department that says, to the administration, to the council, to the mayor, hey, we have a comprehensive plan. Why aren't we following it? But instead, they go with the flow, and then we get into trouble like we are. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of nice parts of the city that I think the intentions are right. But again, it doesn't seem like there's a cohesive plan, and there needs to be a cohesive plan to make things work. And I think to allude to your previous point, John, it's okay to revisit the comprehensive plan year to year. It won't be as costly.
There was a time when we talked about doing that a few years ago.
That's all that's been going on.
Anyway, Anne Marie, Mr. Custodio,
yes.
Mr.
Peroni.
Mr. Peroni.
Thank you, John.
Exactly.
Brian.
Well,
He didn't want to touch my last name.
Anne Marie Encarnaco.
Did
I get it right? Okay, you have been
Encarnaco.
heard. Republicans running for the Common Council on People to be Heard. John Bailey
Thank you.
saying good night.
Thanks for having us,
People
John.
to be heard.